Take the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we look into the bladder of Elon Musk, and that's where we see his soul. I am your host, Negin Farsad, and yeah, unfortunately, we're going to talk about Elon today. He is the fourth branch of government, so we kind of have no choice. We'll also talk about Tom Cruise, who's kind of like the Elon Musk of doing his own stunts, minus the ketamine, plus a lot more charm. We'll also talk about a new theory for why millennials and elder Gen Zs are not having babies. And oh my God, it's a new theory. So let's just really sink our teeth into it. And today, joining me in sinking teeth into many takes is just an incredible panel. I'm so excited for today's panel, you guys. Joining us, you've heard him on this show before. You've loved him on the show before. You've heard him on his own show. He has a daily podcast called Stand Up with Pete Dominick. He talks to really smart and incredible people, and he even included me once, just as an oversight. He is the incredible Pete Dominick. Hey, Pete.
Negin, it's great to see you, and you have to come back whenever you want. You're such a big deal now. It's
so huge. Unbookable. All right, and also joining us on the show today. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. In fact, it was, I think, because of a listener of the show that this next panelist has come to us. He also has a book that I've been hearing about nonstop, so I finally got a chance to start reading it. He's a Washington Post journalist. He's author of the new and incredible page-turner of a book. It's called Hubris Maximus, The Shattering of Elon Musk. It is the excellent Faiz Siddiqui. Hey, Faiz.
Hey, Nikki, and thank you so much for having me. And that was so kind of you to respond to that call out from a fan of the show. So it's really great to be here.
Oh my God. I love it when listeners make suggestions. And of course, like I've heard your book has been a part of the discourse for these many weeks. So it's really exciting to have you on and really get your expert view on everything that's happening with that one dude that we can't stop talking about. And
Tom Cruise.
Another of the dudes. I'd actually love to replace all of the Elon chatter with just talking about Tom Cruise.
Same.
That would be more fun for me. But okay, before we get into the show, I just want to remind listeners, don't forget to support the show by subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. We have an episode coming out next week for our subscribers about salt coding, which is a term of art that refers to being sort of brutally honest with your friends. But the chat gets a little salty with Mike Drucker and Jen Wetter on the panel. So subscribe and listen to these delights yourself. Also, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. And a few of you listen to it on YouTube. But most of you are just some level of Luddite where you stick to your old school podcast apps. Now let's get into it with topic number one. Okay. Okay, before we get into the really meaty subject of the richest man in the world and what happened to him, let's talk about another very rich man. This episode is very rich man heavy. Of course, I'm talking about Tom Cruise. Now, he's been a global celebrity since I can remember, and he is at it again doing his own stunts with the final chapter of Mission Impossible. Now, I'm not a big mission head. Are you guys?
I am.
You are. Okay, you've seen all of them.
I don't know if I would call myself a mission head, but I have watched them all, and I like them all, and I'm a mission head. I'm so ashamed.
Okay. No, and first of all, we'll talk about whether or not there should be shame to that. But Faiz, what's your position via Mission Impossibles and Tom Cruise's?
So I know the theme music.
Yeah.
I think I've seen one or enough of them to know the franchise.
Okay.
But someone asked me to see the movie this weekend, and I looked it up, and it's 2 hours and 54 minutes long. In what world?
Wait, is it really?
It's super long.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's in what world is a Mission Impossible movie Bollywood movie length like justifiable.
Also, in what world was a Bollywood movie justifiable at a Bollywood movie length? You know what I mean? I also had an issue with that. Having lived in India for 2 months, which is something I don't think I've talked about on the show. The show listeners know that I have lived in Paris, and that's something that I mention every other episode probably. But now we know that I've also lived in India, but just for 2 months. So I don't know if it really super
I love
counts.
the way that you say I lived in India and I lived in Paris with the same aristocratic tone. Like you're better than the rest
That's
of us
right.
having lived abroad at all. That's fine. But exactly. I've lived in India. I've lived in Paris.
India.
Oh yeah, well I lived in Syracuse. Let's go.
Jaipur, to be specific. But anyways, I digress. Let's get back to Tom Cruise. Now, look, okay, so he's known for doing his own stunts. This is a fucking thing. We've all heard about him. And the movie's doing really well. And also, I should note, I forgot about this, but Top Gun Maverick grossed $1.5 billion in the box office. It was like the first big movie to come out of COVID.
Yeah.
And look, the man's collagen won't quit. He's like this Christ-like savior of movies. Will that work? I mean, is there someone that could possibly take that place? Because he's not going to be around forever, or he might be around forever. Actually, don't understand what kind of science he's involved in.
There's nobody like that. Why would you do that? Why would you do your own stunts? Why? That's why nobody else does it, because you don't have to. You do some of the stunts, you might do a fight sequence, but you don't ride a plane wing. It's preposterous. There's only one Tom Cruise. It's why he's the biggest movie star of all time and always will be, not only of our lifetime, but of movies before. And now there won't be movie stars probably like him. He hit the sweet spot. He's the greatest of all time. What other questions? If not for Scientology.
Wouldn't you say someone like, I don't know, Marilyn Monroe held his status in her time?
No, she never did anything crazy.
Well, I'm not saying you have to do something crazy, but like just in terms of like being that kind of global celebrity.
I mean, I don't know enough about Marilyn Monroe, but I don't think so. I mean, like the kind of, global celebrity. Okay. But like, I mean, that's a tough comparison, but I'll shut up.
The one insight I can offer you here is I have recently become like a rabid Formula One racing fan. Which
Why? I don't get it.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so you're not a mission head, but you're a rabid Formula One racing fan.
Right.
Okay, and continue.
Yeah, and these cars, they're going down the road at like 230 miles an hour or something, and like it's insane. And Brad Pitt is starring in a new Formula One movie. Yeah. And somebody posted, I don't know, this was like Blue Sky or Twitter, somebody was like, if Tom Cruise did it, he would literally like enter a race and start racing the actual drivers. Yeah. And like that is the difference between like
Brad Pitt. I've seen Brad Pitt talk about Tom Cruise being the one and only. You know, the other people compare those two guys a lot, but there's no comparison. And also F1. I mean, I tried to watch it the other day. I don't understand.
You got to get into the personalities.
Also, isn't McDreamy an actor who actually does do that kind of racing?
Yeah, he's
whatever that guy's name is, McDreamy.
Not Dermot. One of those guys.
That guy from Grey's Anatomy. For those of you who don't understand the 25-year-old reference to McDreamy or whatever the first season was.
It's not an old. Patrick Dempsey is his name, and
Patrick Dempsey.
It's not an old reference because Grey's Anatomy lives on strong on Netflix through my 17, 20-year-old daughters and all their friends. Everybody knows. They watch it over and over.
Okay, so McDreamy is an evergreen reference that makes me feel better.
Which is crazy. I don't mean to steal the segment away from Tom Cruise, but he makes a good point about, Tom would do the racing, and I just don't understand the attraction of auto racing. My dad's a fan.
I also want to say, okay, so Tom Cruise has this crazy thing of doing his own stunts, but the other thing that he's sort of like really known for is really loving movies. And okay, I mentioned that I lived in Paris and in India, but what I didn't mention is having grown up in Palm Springs, which isn't actually cool when you're a townie. I as one of the fucking lame dumb people who fucking grew up in Palm Springs, I went to the movies as a child. So it's funny to me that he's become this kind of like arbiter of all film, because one of my like first times I was allowed to go to the movies by myself, like with a friend or whatever, was in Palm Springs where I was growing up, and at the movie theater was Tom Cruise sitting like watching a movie because he was visiting or whatever. He was like having a weekend away.
In the theater?
Yeah, because he goes to the theater to
Alone?
see movies, but he was I know he was like with some other people, and it was like a big deal. Of course, everyone was like, "Ooh, did you see?" You know, and I mean, I saw him like so briefly, like, and he just really like, you know, and I was like a little kid, and it like, you know, but it's funny because as early as I can remember, I remember being like, "Oh, that's funny that he's like at the theater. He could probably just get this on VHS tape or whatever." But I remember
Tom
thinking, "Oh,
Selleck
that's
at a
interesting."
deli.
You saw what?
Tom Selleck at a deli. Not the same.
Was he, or what kind of sandwich was he ordering? Because maybe it is the same.
Some kind of Scientology sandwich. So maybe
there it is. Okay, so there it is. Yeah. But here's the other interesting thing when you talk about the difference between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise is like Brad Pitt still does movies for which really intense acting is required. And Tom Cruise only used to do that. Like he basically hasn't done a non-action movie since the time I saw him in a movie theater as a child.
Well, that would be so disappointing if he like what is the like if he was doing like a Wes Anderson film or something. Well, actually, that would be so good.
Magnolia. He played a really he did a really good job in that film. Magnolia is considered one of.
And wasn't it? He may have even It was nominated for an Oscar for that movie, I think. And that was like maybe one of the last times he did real acting, like capital
Jack
A.
Reacher. I said Jack Reacher, but of course I was joking. It's in that movie. Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb. No, you're absolutely right. Other than that film, he really never allowed himself to be very vulnerable, very different.
And so now he's like this guy that basically always posts when he goes to a movie and always is talking about go see this in a movie and always talks about like we shot this for the cinema, right? And I don't know, I mean, the way, and I'm curious what you think about this, Faiz, because like you're in media, you're a journalist, you see a lot of these people who can capture the country, if not the world's attention. Like, are we in such a decentralized media environment that like no one could ever be a Tom Cruise capturing people's attention in that way?
I was just thinking about the fact that like Tom Cruise has really like he has outlasted the era. First of all, like we're in this era of like everything is so bad that nostalgia is very powerful. But he's also like outlasted like our like recalibration of our relationship with these celebrities, like especially older celebrities, which is like I think Tom Hanks has become like extremely like polarizing, though Tom Hanks is great.
Because the adrenochrome.
Wait, why is Tom Hanks polarizing? I thought he was the least polarizing.
But like across like the political spectrum, right? Is there like something that I need to know about like are both liberals and conservatives like opposed to Tom Cruise in some way that they would be like with a Tom Hanks or with a Alec Baldwin? Like with Tom Cruise, it's like we know the baggage, and the baggage is kind of interesting. It's like the like Scientology and the couch. Is that what we're talking about here?
Right. And it's funny you should mention that about the polarization point, because I talked about Tom Cruise. Oh my God, I guess I can't stop talking about Tom Cruise on this show during the Olympics, because he did which I'll still please go see, the most incredible flag handoff from the French mayor to the mayor of Los Angeles, where he did a crazy stunt and went on an aircraft and blah, 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 and landed in Hollywood and like took the flag to fucking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers or whatever. And it was like a really, really amazing 10 minutes of TV. And again, I think part of it is because he's so America. Like he is the physical embodiment of America, a country that despite all of its flaws, somehow never ages. And he also, I think you're right, is not polarizing. And I think part of maybe being an action hero is that. Pete, feels like you had to say something.
I will only split the hair that I think Faiz makes a really good point about him not being polarizing politically. And I think that those of us who are really turned off by or offended by his Scientology. I mean, like I said, it doesn't stop me from seeing the movies. I don't talk much about Tom Cruise. He doesn't put himself in a position ever to give his opinion on divisive issues. and people would be terrified to ask him a question about Trump or gay rights or any number of things that could be seen as divisive, and he would never answer it because he's like the old school Michael Jordan when Jordan said, listen, I don't wade into these things because Republicans buy sneakers too. Tom Cruise would say the same thing. He just wants to entertain everybody. And he doesn't take, Ben Affleck, I'm trying to think of other movie stars, he'd go on Real Time with Bill Maher, a very opinionated show, or any other white actor. And I'm going to keep it white male actors.
You know who else would do Real Time with Bill Maher? Pete Dominick would and has. Hey!
Also did Joe Rogan right before the pandemic.
Okay.
Like pre-COVID.
Can I weigh in on the Jordan comparison?
Please,
I just think it's like, we're going to pivot to sports, I guess, again. But it's it's like people like effort. Like we're in such again, going back to our era or our times, it's like, it's easy to like fling off hot takes, or like even watching movies, like there are a lot of like canned like narratives about whatever it is, cultural issues, political issues, but like Tom Cruise doing his own stunts is just like pure effort.
Point.
And like Jordan is similar. Jordan, unfortunately, like we don't know what kind of person he is. We don't know if he like he doesn't weigh in on things the way that LeBron does, but there's just a respect of like the work that he put in.
You make a really good point that could lead us into talking about your book, and I don't want to take over, but I mean, the point is that we like people, we like everybody works hard, and you can see athletes and you can see actors. You can certainly see Tom Cruise riding the fucking wing of a plane, and you can see athletes. But it's the reason why I don't like a lot of super wealthy people like Elon Musk and others who inherited much of their wealth. And then we can take it from there, but you don't see them working necessarily because they're not necessarily making something. It's certainly true of the financial industry, like bankers and so on. I don't think they're working that hard. And so I don't respect them. I feel like they were handed a lot of shit. They got lucky. And so when you see somebody working hard, or that their job is hard, working in a forest as a logger or being a teacher or a nurse or something like that, you respect that. And I think that is a general human trait, if not an American trait. But there's a lot of reason not to like a lot of people who are wealthy that don't look like they're working very hard.
Okay, I love this point. Let us take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll really get into it with Elon. And we are back, and we're ready with topic number 2. Okay, so today is a special day because for so many episodes we've talked about Elon Musk, and now we have a panelist who literally wrote a book about, if not the book about, on Elon. Faiz wrote the incredible book Hubris Maximus, all about the rise of Elon Musk, the one we know today. And it's such a funny time. Like, we booked you before the news of his bladder control issues, but that was a like big breaking news from the weekend, was that Elon and his drug use, which we'll get into. But first, I just want to ask you, Faiz, like, why did you write this book? Like, part of me is a little bit like, the question is, why did you do this to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good one that I ask myself every day. So I had been covering, I was a technology reporter at the Post in San Francisco covering Tesla, and I started to find that this was a company that was not run like, I don't know, any other company that I'd covered. I'd covered agencies, like, it was unlike any, agency. It was a company that was publicly traded, but kind of run as an autocracy. Like, it basically flowed through one person, and it was the manifestation of one person's will, for better or worse. And the best example that I can give on that is, like, what other company is producing, however you may feel about it, the Cybertruck. Like, you see that, and that is the manifestation of one man's will, in the way that, the Homer Simpson car, the one, like, I think it has like 15 cup holders or something.
Right, yeah.
It's this like absurd looking thing that like only Homer Simpson could have come up with. Well, like, the Cybertruck rolls down the road, and like it is purely a result of, we might say, the hubris of Elon and his company. And I can tell you more about it, but like just the quick summary is that like it's not doing very well.
What I just heard is that like most publicly traded companies have a board that weighs in on important decisions, and if it's an automobile company and it's Chevrolet, they tell the CEO of Chevrolet, "Don't make that car."
And
No
Tesla,
it or us or you, and it will become like a cultural emblem that is bad.
Tesla too has a board, but as I write in the book, it's a board that is a little bit toothless. It's powerless at times to combat some of these impulses. So just going back to your original question, I mean, I think this was somebody who fascinated me, who wielded power in a way that I hadn't seen, and also was quickly becoming such a center of entrenched power in society that I knew that this idea would have legs.
Fascinating.
I mean, so many legs. And one of the things that you talk about is right, like his transformation. So talk to me a little bit about that transformation. I'm sure Pete has questions too of like that, because it's wild. I mean,
don't
Tesla,
say his transition.
That's right. And I'm sure, and you talk about that in the book too, of him having a trans daughter. But one of the things that I think was really, a beautiful reminder in the book, which is like, I think oftentimes we forget, is that he was just a huge environmentalist, and that Tesla is this gleaming $1 billion business that's supposed to be an example of what you do when you're serious about the environment, right? And so his entire persona was wrapped up in that. And now he's just a full hardcore MAGA Republican. So can you talk to me a little bit about how quickly that change occurred, and like some of your favorite moment from that shift?
So Tesla's mission statement is accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, right? So automatically you have a company that has planted the flag as like, we're the green energy company. And we're a very politically oriented company in some ways. Like, that was a radical thing to be about. In an environment where everyone else's mission is to like sell cars. But Tesla quickly realizes that the best way to get people to adopt electric vehicles is to make them like desirable, to make a car that everybody wants. And you guys who have been to places such as India and Paris, but mostly California, will note that Tesla's like, we're everywhere. They were like, you look left, you look right, you're gonna see like a couple of Teslas. And it was because like these were the halo car. These were the cars that people wanted, especially celebrities. They wanted to show off their Tesla. I'm talking like 2016 to 2020. And why was that? Because they were super fast. Like, you put your foot to the floor and like it has this like neck whipping speed, this instant torque. And kids wanted Teslas. So they were onto something, right? And there was just this massive adoption of the product. Somewhere along the way, Tesla exhausts its EV credits. Everyone got $7,500 towards the purchase of an electric vehicle. You got 200,000 of those credits, or something in that range. And all of a sudden, it becomes the world's most valuable automaker. Musk becomes the world's richest person. And then those same types of liberal policies that would have enabled a company like Tesla to rise start to become, in contrast to what Elon's trying to do. So California starts to shut down during COVID. Tesla has to pause its assembly line. The Biden administration wants to enable other car makers to compete in electric vehicles the way that Tesla has. They have some objection to that. And finally, President Joe Biden leaves Elon Musk and Tesla out of an electric vehicle event on the South Lawn of the White House. Every other automaker, U.S. automaker deploying electric cars, is there, along with the United Auto Workers, but Elon is left out. And that is the nail in the coffin, and I think that explains a little bit of how we ended up where we
So, I mean, God, it's so in your reporting, you've seen that like his ego is that like fragile.
That's one way of saying it, but like, yeah, the fragility of its ego, but it's a sensitivity, right? Faiz, like there's a sensitivity to like a stranger on Twitter, much less the president. Any kind of joke at his expense, he's very. I just think, and my question really is about how we psychoanalyze powerful people and how he seems like such an easy mark. But I know you write about the woke mind virus. And so that when we get done psychoanalyzing them, I think the question we get left at, and I think that's what you're getting at, Negin, and this is the question, is what is the motivation for this person? And I feel like we pretty well know. I mean, but you tell us, I guess.
Well, I would say like there's a much more satisfying like ideological answer that I'm not going to give you. But in the book, I talk about a moment where somebody says to him, like, Elon, why go to Mars? Like, I think, humans are going to get so much smarter. And in like 1,000 years or 20,000 years, like, we're definitely going to get there. Like, why do we have to do it? And the person comes away with the realization that it's not that we have to get to Mars. It's that Elon has to be the one to take us there. That Elon has such a desire to like be the one to take us there, and he also declares himself in the book the reincarnation of the spirit of Alexander the Great to a colleague who's asking him like, hey Elon, what's our progress like on digitizing the Yellow Pages? This is in the 90s. He has this very small startup with a narrow mandate to like digitize the phone book, and Elon's talking about, I'm the reincarnation of the spirit of Alexander.
It's crazy. He thinks he's a god. And the other thing is he has this whole ideology about spreading. This is the only place I have in common with him. We both spread our seed far and wide. In my case, it's a perfect bone structure, but in his case, it's like what is that about?
And there has to be a little bit of like, I am smart, I am ideal in some way. Like if you're a humble person, like your last instinct is like, there need to be 50 more of me, right?
Exactly. But it's also, it's not, it doesn't he also like, I don't know if he's done stuff to his face or whatever, but like, isn't he also like kind of wants to look young and skinny? Like, hasn't he I don't know, hasn't he done Ozempic or whatever? I mean, I'm like pulling.
You should try new outfit wardrobe choices, because those clothes are
not
snug.
But is this like basic rich people vanity? Like
okay, well, but I mean, yeah, but if he for a person who like has such a god complex or an Alexander the Great complex, you wouldn't need to do that. I think like if you really think you're that amazing, you're like, and this beer belly is also amazing. I don't know what I'm talking about, but no, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I like that point. I mean, the only person I could think of is like maybe Warren Buffett, who just like doesn't necessarily. Warren Buffett, I'm pretty sure I've read, has like the same like Philips like or Sony television, like tube TV that he's had since the 90s.
He bought 1966. His house.
Same house. He lives in Omaha.
My favorite little detail about Warren Buffett was that he at one point did buy a private jet. And he named it the Indefensible because it was just so he needed it or whatever, but it was like antithetical to his actual beliefs, which is like, this is fucking horrendous, But I think it's interesting. I think the difference we're seeing between these two men, Warren Buffett and Elon Musk, is a level of self-awareness. Like, I don't know that Elon Musk has that kind of self-awareness.
Even though the thing that's fascinating about him, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Faiz, but like most super wealthy people who have that ego, and they might even have some kind of Calvinist attitude or ideology that they were born to be rich or whatever, they deserve it. And most of them still have some kind of shame around it, or it's just advantageous financially. So the super wealthiest people in America, almost all of the hospitals have pediatric wings named after them. They do something, the Koch brothers at the Met and so much more. They do something with their money to leave a legacy of good in some way. So it's medicine or education or whatever, Bill Gates, they become philanthropists. But my understanding is that he doesn't do any of that.
But Elon, I mean, this is not a defense or a criticism, but like Elon believes that the true altruism is like getting people to Mars or making
Driving
our entire
Teslas.
Vehicle fleet, electric.
Right.
It's true, but and I know you're not defending him, but that's you're making money off of that
Definitely.
good thing. That would be like saying I'm a doctor, and so I'm making good money curing, saving people's lives.
The best example of this is I write about how he basically a judge puts it, he self-drives like this process to award himself $56 billion for his work at Tesla. Which is like a gargantuan, like nobody gets paid that amount of money to do anything.
And it's constantly in the courts of like, can he get paid that much?
Can he get paid that much? And he says like, this money is not like for me, it's for my ambitions to get us to Mars or to like, build up my companies. But like, how can you possibly argue that yes, $56 billion is required for the fate of humanity, and there's no other number that's going to work.
Don't you think getting into all the reporting around this is included, his mentors and the billionaire tech pros, it does. People always say no one needs that amount of money. You do need all the money, or as much billions as you can, to buy countries and create a techno state. Like that money is required to buy elections and to take over countries, which is what he's tried to do. He's tried to influence. Obviously, he bought America. He's trying to buy Germany and other European countries, it would seem, as well. Wait till the Chinese start selling their cars everywhere.
Well, let's talk about his role in government. So, which is like now come to an end. I mean, it felt like, I don't know, he was like a Democrat up until, pretty recently. He joins the Trump administration, as we all know. He actually started by supporting DeSantis, and you talk about that, like Faiz in your book. Moving over to Trump, and now I guess leaving the Trump administration. Why is all of this happening? Like, why not stay? Or what's your best guess on how this is playing out, knowing what you know?
Yeah, why are they breaking up?
Yeah. Well, and is it a real breakup? I don't know.
Mad billionaire versus Mad King.
So Elon started to, so there were all of these federal investigations piling up. One, like, there was regulatory scrutiny of Tesla's big bet on autonomous cars. The SEC had a history of investigating Elon. There was a Department of Justice investigation. There were all kinds of regulatory approvals that Elon needed to do his work. And he started to talk about how, like, we are being strangled by government overregulation, and unless we free ourselves of this, like, humanity will never advance and get to Mars. And so you can see, like, he's hinting at a very clear. He also says this about the woke mind virus. Like, the woke mind virus is like imperiling our progress. So all of these, like, seemingly, like, where he could argue he has these altruistic motivations, they start to then dovetail with politics, where Elon is like, oh, actually what I need to do is save our culture and free our culture of these, like, woke progressive influences that are stopping us from advancing. But Elon has a very personal stake here. Like, his pay package has been held up in court. His companies are increasingly under the microscope.
And everyone hates him and Teslas now. I mean,
at this point,
it took a precipitous decline. So
yeah, I mean, at this point, there's a ton
to the brand. How do you measure the damage to the brand?
Oh, I mean, it's like
America or Europe or anywhere. I'm told everywhere it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, and they had a quarter where they wouldn't have turned a profit, but for this, like, loophole that I'm happy to explain to you on a different podcast where we talk about electric vehicle loopholes. Like, they're in the dump at the moment. And, like, 4 years ago, they were in this same position, and he always has managed to, like, similar to old Donald Trump, wriggle himself out of this kind of jam. But he's, like, put himself and his company back into this position, and just purely as a result of, like, these personality quirks, right? Like, he becomes obsessed with, I need to solve the issue of the woke mind virus. I need to wade into politics. I need to befriend the president.
Well, One more question real quick, Negin, could I, about it? Because the thing that he did that personally I'm most upset about and most affected me was his purchase and destruction of Twitter, which I loved and which I was had a pretty good following on, and which helped me, promote all of my work, my podcast. Why did he buy Twitter, and how did that, I feel like he wanted to buy the conversation. He wanted to have his own earth truth to tell people about vaccines and anything else.
I mean, you're onto something. I mean, I'll tell you, like, your earlier point about our earlier points about like hard work and like admiring hardworking people. Elon loves to tell a story that he is the hardest working man in America, that he's sleeping in the factory, and that like nobody is putting in more hours. He said Doge was doing 120-hour work weeks. He is all about the message that's getting out to people. And as the message starts to get more critical, as Elon's reputation starts to come more under the microscope, and a lot of that is coming from the mainstream media or what have you on Twitter. And at the same time, he starts to see things like the ban on President Trump, the ban of the Babylon Bee, his favorite satire website.
Twitter banned them before he bought it.
It's like you have to look at this through the lens of his personal experience. Like, it's not hard to see that like Elon's starting to have a bad time on the website. Now he can buy it and fix it. Similar to like Pete, you were having a good time on the website. Like if you had only thought, I need to buy it and keep it keep it the way it is,
I ended up buying MySpace.
But okay, we absolutely cannot leave this segment without talking about the drugs, because that was the big news over the weekend, that he's basically done more ketamine than we even previously thought, and he was doing so much that he mentioned to friends having like a bladder problem that's associated with ketamine, and I mean, that's just fun and funny, but also a guy who was doing a ton of drugs, who in certain of his media appearances has also seemed like he was possibly on drugs, has had outsized influence on our government. How did drugs play a game in your reporting? And because I have a hard time understanding sort of like when that all started.
So I opened the book with this scene of Elon's getting charged by the SEC for securities fraud, and on the screen are like interspersed like images of him smoking weed on Joe Rogan and just like laughing maniacally. And I talk about how like, okay, that's like you're smoking like weed. It's a thing. It's like illegal in so many places, but you also run a company with like this drug policy. And I'm pretty sure NASA has like this zero tolerance drug policy. So already you are like in a position where even if however you may feel, you're a little bit of a hypocrite for like not hiring somebody who would do the same thing. But around that same time, people start to grow around Elon, start to grow concerned by his behavior. Elon talks about, I believe, mixing like wine and Ambien, which is like apparently not a great combo. And so like there are signs that this kind of thing is happening, but what the Times has done is, their reporting is exhaustive. I mean, down to, that extremely graphic detail of like the bladder problems. It seems like it has spiraled, from where, I get into in the book. I will just say Elon has acknowledged some use of ketamine, I believe, for, I think maybe depression.
Publicly he's talked about that.
So I mean, certainly like he can say like, yeah, like I've microdosed or whatever it is, but what the Times lays out is a pattern of drug use that is much more extensive.
What's shocking to me is that he can use so many drugs. He can do all these things, all these allegations against women. He can have kids with several women. He's a white supremacist openly. But as long as, I think it's an American thing, but it's probably everywhere. As long as you are as wealthy as he is, like we somehow excuse it or somehow allow
pass. Yeah.
you to have a pass, no matter how you could murder and rape. But if you have billions of dollars, we kind of like, well, yeah, but he's a billionaire.
Although I will say that pass has shrunk considerably given the status of Tesla on, the loss of market share of Tesla, like his own popularity. I feel like so Trump has all of these qualities that for whatever reason nothing sticks and everyone's, but Elon, I think, tested that Trump thing and has seen that, he doesn't have that whatever magic juice that Trump has that lets him get away with literally everything, because now Elon is leaving the government. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't want to, but he kind of has to because his big shining company is failing. So and he's incredibly unpopular. So like
the double Hitler salute didn't help either, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but it also the funny thing I think is also the timing of the Cybertruck didn't help, because the Cybertruck felt like it sort of started to be visible when Elon was visible in the White House. And then it was like, it was like a constant reminder. If you saw one on the street, they're so noticeable. Like them or don't like the aesthetics, either way, you think of him when you see it. And then it was just like constant reminders everywhere.
You go to a dealership, you have a target to protest, to an actual place. Like, it's not like if a senator or a congressperson owns some business in your town, you would go and protest it. But we're so helpless out here to do anything that it's what created these protests and attacks, like vandals, attacking and arsonists, these dealerships, because people are so desperate to, get back at the guy that's how it's manifesting. That's not like anybody else.
The more people saw him, the less they liked him. And I think he's very different from, we could talk about Trump in that regard too, but like, I think Trump has this ability to be like people will see him and they'll be like, they'll separate him from like the numerous scandals and like all of the bad qualities, and they'll be like, he like that was a funny joke or whatever it is.
Forever, and he kind of knows what he's doing. But Elon, we haven't, and we're like, what are you doing every time he speaks? Right?
Well, and that's why I was like over here, like read the book. Like I swear to you, I was very like, as this is happening, I am like, are we sure that like we know this guy? Do you guys, like, even Republicans who like trusted Musk to achieve everything he was going to achieve with Doge, Musk has had like a 5-year run of like not really delivering,
and he's failed, and now he's criticizing Republicans, saying everybody who voted for this bill. It's crazy what happened in the last 48 hours.
And it's like so predictable, right? It's like,
But right. Sorry, Pete, can you point that out for the audience, that what has happened in the 48 hours with respect to Musk and the bill?
They passed the big, bad, beautiful bill, and then
in the House,
but every single entity, organization, individual that looks at such things to determine whether or not it adds to the debt has said it adds a tremendous amount to the debt. And so Elon Musk's whole thing has been cutting government and saving $2 trillion. And I guess there's some kind of analogy, but it's like going into someone's house and giving them some advice on how to save money and then going and spending all of the money. So it is hypocritical. And he's out there saying that, and he's got some people backing him up. A lot of Republicans certainly think that, and a lot of Americans realize that. Like every other Republican, they're adding more to the deficit than Democrats. And Elon Musk is saying it, and he's saying it in a really hyperbolic way, and it's an abomination. And he's going after everybody who passed it, and we can try to examine why, but he's turning his back on Trump. And we saw that happen. How is that?
And also, I can't imagine that his like publicity team wants him to stay the course. Like I imagine his publicity team is like, if you want us to fix you, tell us about his publicity team. How much control do they have?
They were all fired at the same time. They really, like suddenly he fired the entire PR department at Tesla.
Wait, and this was like before
this was like 2020-ish. Like Elon decided that formal.
So he doesn't have a publicity team.
Not in the ways that like he draws on PR professionals as needed.
Right.
But this is not his default.
I mean, did you see that Sunday morning CBS interview he did? And the guy asked him a question about Trump, and he's like, I don't want to talk about that. And the reporter's like, you said we could talk about anything. He's like, no, because he doesn't have a PR team to go in ahead. And, like, he's a mess. The guy's a total mess all the time.
So here's my last question on this. And then we got to wrap it up. But my last question is, what do both of you think, like, predictions for, can he rebuild? Can he Tom Cruise himself and rebuild his reputation? Or, are we going to keep fucking talking about him, or is he kind of outdone, or like government wise?
Jeez, I'll go first because I know a lot less than Faiz. But I'll say anybody with that much money can do whatever they want to rebuild their image, especially since he owns Twitter. I do think that his car brand is damaged for a lot of reasons, as well as they're taking away the tax credit for renewable energy cars. But I think his brand of automobile, at the least, is tremendously damaged and permanently. I don't know how you come back from that, but he will find his way into all kinds of other things, I'm guessing, and including other countries' politics. Although he was a huge failure here politically, it would seem to turn out, after getting Trump and Republicans elected. What happened with the Wisconsin judge is probably the primary reason Republicans said this dude's got to go. Certainly,
and
Trump.
What happened in Germany.
And right, yeah. So I don't know that is evidence that his brand, in all ways, his automobile and his political influence is damaged. But Faiz knows a lot more than me.
Faiz, final word.
I just have 2 points. Pete, this is America, baby. If they discount the cars enough, people will buy them. Other people will see them, and like it's always been the case with Teslas, where it's like, okay, like this is. I'm sorry to be so elitist here, but like when people ask me about like being an early adopter of an EV, I think about like the cell phone thing, and I'm like, I'm not going to recommend like some random brand to people. Like I will say, like, get an iPhone, it's easy, or a Samsung, like it's easy. Like I do not want to be the person who is blamed for like grandma not being able to charge.
Go get an iRiver or whatever.
So exactly, like that's the advantage that Tesla has. And if they discount the cars, which is not great for business, but like it's a strategy that they've used, like people will buy them because people's number one primary buying decision is not based on politics. Increasingly, Tesla is associated with politics, but like if they build a good car, it'll sell.
I'm sure you're right, but I'll push back simply saying that we have seen automobile manufacturers go out of business, many of them in our lifetime, including, Saturn, and others.
Big fan of Saab.
And Saab, and with the increase of other, like those BYD electric cars that China's making are apparently as good, if not better, and cheaper. So you're right about This Is America, Baby, which is the name of my new podcast, folks. Please join me for This Is America, Baby with Negin, special guest now. But I mean, you could have more competition. So.
Yeah, agreed. The second point I was going to make is that throughout the book, you see Elon just like, he is like down in the dumps. He is completely just like, he's depressed. He is no longer posting. And we're kind of in one of those moments. And he always rebuilds and like, he's stronger.
No. Let this be the one that doesn't happen. What if he rebuilds and he's like, gets some sort of Warren Buffett style self-realization and starts fucking calming the fuck down generally?
Not gonna happen.
All right, folks. That is the end of the show. We did not get to topic number 3, which is very unusual for Fake the Nation, which is always a very 3-topic show. But I just could not help being able to talk about Elon Musk with an expert who literally wrote the book. So I just felt like let's let that topic go, as far as we have stuff to say, which we just felt like we kept having stuff to say. And what I would love for the people of Fake the Nation is to be able to follow both of you and the wonderful things that you do. Faiz, where do they follow you, and remind them where can they get that book and what is it called?
Yeah, I am at, the at sign, Faiz, Faizsays, Faiz says. And the book is Hubris Maximus, The Shattering of Elon Musk. I'm told you can buy it wherever books are sold.
You can, in fact, buy wherever books are sold, and it's such a page turner, and it's such like an interesting, also just snapshot of the times. And anyways, I highly recommend this book for your, you're gonna go on a beach next weekend. This is your book. Take it with you. Have a good time.
Take Elon.
And take Elon with you. Pete, where do people find you?
Hey, I do a daily podcast, Stand Up with Pete Dominick, wherever you get your podcasts, available on YouTube at youtube.com/standupwithpete. And thank you very much for having me. This is I really enjoyed, hearing from Faiz. I'm excited to read the book and talk to him as well.
Oh my God. So great. And by the way, Pete does such a fantastic job with that podcast, and he's so rigorous and so insightful and so funny.
Rigorous.
You should absolutely subscribe to that podcast. As for me, you know where to find me and all the things that I do. You can catch me on Wait, Don't Tell Me if you're hearing this episode on Thursday, this week, and next week is a special episode of Wait, Don't Tell Me, where you will see me. So if you're in Chicago, come see a live taping of that show. Otherwise, I'd like to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. It's our wonderful producer, Rob Heath. I should note, Andrew McGuire is not with the show anymore because he wanted to move on and do other things, and the poor guy really held out until we made this transition. And I thank you so much to Andrew, who is always so wonderful. And now we get to experience the wonder that is Rob. So welcome, Rob, and so excited that you're with us. I also want to thank Gaby, who wrote our theme music. You can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com with any ideas or suggestions. Don't forget to support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad, and we'll be back in your earballs next week.